The first race for the World Endurance Championship in 2023 has now been completed, and there's a lot to discuss, especially in the Hypercar category, as for the first time ever, we got to see the LMH and LMDH prototypes race on the same track at the exact same time. It's good to see that the WEC is back in what should be a historic season in this World Championship. So this is my WEC race review for the first event in 2023, the 1000 Miles of Sebring. Okay, where do we begin? Well, I think we can start off with the grid itself. A pretty surprising qualifying session, especially considering that Toyota was the fastest team in the practice sessions and the prologue. But this time it was the number 50 Ferrari of Antonio Fuoco setting the fastest time of a 1:45.067. Even though Ferrari got pole position in qualifying, Toyota were lining up P2 and P3 in the qualification for the race, and definitely were the fastest team, and they eventually proved that in the race itself. The race started out pretty good, there weren't any huge incidents at the start, and the number 50 Ferrari of Antonio Fuoco continued to lead the pack away as the Ferrari team as a whole were challenging the Toyotas, with the 51 of Alessandro Pierguidi already challenging the number 7 Toyota. The big topic at the start was the surprising pit stop for one of the Peugeots. Unfortunately, the number 94 car had to come in because of a technical issue, and it was very surprising that another gearbox issue plagued the 9X8 Hypercar, and they were already having such issues before the race even began. As the race progressed and the battle at the front continued, another great battle was happening in the GTE AM field. The Iron Dames Porsche, driven by Sarah Bovey, and the Corvette, driven by Ben Keating, were having an amazing battle, switching back and forth for the lead of the class. As this battle continued, the number 83 Ferrari, who was just behind, spun off at turn 1, losing control and heading into the tire barrier, a massive crash for the Ferrari, which flipped up into the air. The good news was the driver was okay. The bad news was the Ferrari car was not, and the 83 GTE entry unfortunately had to retire from the race. Up at the front, both Ferrari hypercars came into the pit lane from the lead of the pack. This was quite surprising since it was both Ferraris. Their rivals Toyota would then inherit the lead, and then of course would the strategy even work out? This was so early into the race, and was this the right call from Ferrari? Once the cleanup was done for that massive crash involving the 83 Ferrari, it was later announced that the number 50 Hypercar Ferrari, driven by Antonio Fuoco, had to serve a drive-through penalty for overtaking another car under the yellow. It was hard to take in because this would for sure cost Ferrari the lead of the race. As the two Toyotas extended their lead, a fierce battle broke out between Porsche and Cadillac. Alex Lynn in the number 2 Cadillac was attacking the number 5 Porsche of Michael Christensen, the Cadillac getting passed at turn 3. Soon after, the Cadillac caught up to the number 6 Porsche and made a similar move to the previous 963 at turn 3 on the 6. Meanwhile, in the GT class, Iron Dames was leading, until the Iron Dames car unfortunately went off at turn 1 in the grass, and the whole rear diffuser and the back bumper of the car came off. This was super unfortunate, as this would ultimately take the team out of contention for fighting for the lead in GTE AM. Unfortunately, Peugeot's reliability issues were not over. The 93 9X8 Hypercar also encountered gearbox issues, so both Peugeots having gearbox issues here at Sebring. This put Peugeot quite far behind the likes of Toyota, Ferrari, Porsche, and Cadillac, and even were behind Vanwall, who are a brand new team into the hypercar world. Now, it's worth mentioning that Peugeot was not the only hypercar team struggling with reliability. Glickenhaus was another manufacturer plagued with those issues. The Glickenhaus unfortunately suffered reliability issues throughout the entire race, and on the 62nd lap of the event, Glickenhaus decided to retire the car because of the engine cutting out. A disappointing result for SCG, especially since this is technically their home event, since Glickenhaus is from the United States. Further into the race, contact happened between the Vanwall and the number 93 Peugeot. When the yellow came out, the Vanwall slowed at the Sunset Bend, and unfortunately, Mikkel Jensen, who was driving the number 93 9X8 Hypercar, went into the back of the Vanwall. I'm not entirely sure what happened here. It's possible the Peugeot driver accidentally braked too late in this case, but either way, there was contact between the two and the van wall had to come into the pit lane for repairs. As the race continued, another incident happened for a hypercar entry. Just before the back straight, a GTE car and the number 51 Ferrari made contact. This sent the hypercar into the path of another car on track. Thankfully, neither car was out of the race, but both entries had to come into the pit lane for repairs. Alessandro Pierguidi was able to get the 51 in, but that car lost a lot of time and wasn't able to get back into the top 5 positions. A dramatic and key moment in the race for LMP2 was the lead change when the LMP2 entry of the number 23 United Autosports car pulled off to the side of the track to retire because of a technical issue. Oddly enough, what happened to the 23 was an onboard camera triggered a safety sensor that effectively turned off the entire car. I feel so bad for them because they were having such an amazing race and I think they could have won LMP2. It's a shame the technical issue retired the car. Towards the end of the race, Van Wall had a devastating blow. Up until this point, the only time-consuming issue that I could see was the contact with the Peugeot, which ultimately sent it into the pits to get repaired. Jacques Villeneuve was in the car when it had an unusual spin at the final bend. This was caused by a suspension failure. And if you ask me, that's a pretty big fix, especially for a small team such as Van Wall. Villeneuve brought the car back to the pits so the crew could get to work. There was a rumor going around that the Van Wall would retire from the race, and that of course would be a devastating result for the Van Wall team. But the crew members worked tirelessly to get that car back out on track and into the race. It was far down on the leaderboard, but the car was still in the race. So as the checkered flag fell, Toyota crossed the line in first and second to dominate the 1,000 miles of Sebring. Third place would go to the pole-sitting number 50 Ferrari AF Corsa. This meant that Ferrari grabbed their first podium in Hypercar. In LMP2, it was the number 48 Hertz Team Jota coming across the line to win LMP2. The number 63 Prima car could have had a chance at winning, but they had to come into the pit lane because they were very low on fuel and may have not lasted the race if they stayed out. In GTE AM, it was the number 33 Corvette racing car. And this is the same Corvette which battled with Sarah Bovey in the very early stages of the race. A very, very consistent drive from the Corvette team. So now that the first event for Hypercar in 2023 is complete, how did each team do? Well, we'll start off with Toyota Gazoo Racing, and then we'll move from there. So Toyota, dominant performance, absolutely incredible. The team to beat, if I'm being honest. They had it all structured to the last minute of this race, so well done to them. Ferrari is arguably the second fastest team in Hypercar, at least from Sebring. Maybe it will be different in future races. Tire management seemed to be a little bit of an issue for the Ferrari team here at Sebring. Hopefully it goes better for Portimao. I think Ferrari, Porsche, and Cadillac have similar pace, and I think they're going to be the teams that could take the fight to Toyota in the future. There's one thing, though, that we have to keep in mind, and this is one of the reasons why they weren't as quick as Toyota, or up there at least, with the Japanese manufacturer. And that is the topic of new team mistakes. These three manufacturers have been in endurance racing for quite some time, and they are very well-known manufacturers. They have incredible achievements as well. The thing is, though, this is their first race in the Hypercar class, where Toyota has been dominating the series for the past few years. So it's going to take some time for these manufacturers to get used to these new regulations, get used to these new cars, and then I think they'll be able to take the fight to Toyota. As for Van Wall, I think they just need more experience in the Hypercar class. After all, this is their first race they completed. The car definitely has potential, and I think the entire crew of Floyd Van Wall Racing Team will do great in the Hypercar class. I think Peugeot has got a lot of work to do. Those reliability issues are really going to impact their performance out on track. I think the bumpy surface of Sebring affected the 9X8 Hypercar, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they were struggling with reliability. Either way, I just hope these reliability issues stop. I'm wishing that Peugeot has a better time in the next race at Portimao. and hopefully they'll be able to challenge the likes of Porsche, Cadillac, and Ferrari. Glickenhaus is kind of an unknown at this point. That electrical issue really impacted their result as they had to retire the car. Maybe it's similar to my thoughts on Peugeot. Did Glickenhaus suffer reliability-wise because of the bumpy nature of Sebring? I don't know what to expect. I'm just hoping that the American manufacturer has a better time in Portimao and for the rest of the season. So the first race for the 2023 World Endurance Championship is now complete. What did you think of that race, and which team are you supporting? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section. If you're interested in endurance racing and you want to get updates on the WEC and IMSA, make sure to subscribe to the left. And if you want to see more videos, watch one of the suggested options to the right of your screen. So, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.